The reality that we see, that we perceive, and it's different for everyone, um, is obviously bounded, or it's put into a frame by our external reality. And there's all these elements, and it's always changing. So because of that diversity of experience, there's a lot of chance for folks to, within their own life, have dual experience. In other words, they may construct their reality in one setting according to the attributes of the personalities and circumstances within that group, but when they are within contact in another setting, that you find that there's a definite shift. But it's shifting, and in a postmodern world, there is a more dual way of us viewing ourselves because of these um, different spheres. There's some evidence that for children today growing up, there's a dual um, way that reality is constructed. If you're socialized in your family, that's one sphere, and if you're socialized in daycare or perhaps school, that's another sphere. So you've got these instances where there's a dual socialization occurring. It can sometimes create confusion. Um, and there's this paper that I've been referring to. That children growing up in the postmodern family have been called postmodern children. Parents in the postmodern family may relinquish their roles as educators. For many postmodern children, there was dual socialization by family and daycare provider. These researchers have found that with childcare shared between family and daycare, new problems have arisen. While some children thrive on dual socializations, others languish, unable to adjust to either environment or to the demands of daily transition from one environment to the other. The target is shifted from the whole child to developing the child's positive sense of self-esteem. If we're really going to understand the social development and like some of our customs here, I think we have to look at that shift. Right, we've got the postmodern. The modern was first, which was production line, assembly line, mechanized, machine and man working together. Postmodern was after the conveniences of the 50s and 60s. The 80s came along. Technology became more advanced. We stopped having to be so concerned with all aspects of production. We moved into a period of economic stability. Hasn't been reached on that, but they need better understanding of the variety of human families in this period. When we became involved in the 80s and more, technology coming in, advancing even further, creating more free time, and then restructuring the way business is run in this country. So this is kind of what we're talking about. It's called is, and there's a really interesting chapter in this book. It's called the Politics of Experience by R.D. Laing. He talks about pseudo things. When we're talking about the dual experience, because not everybody can relate between the two, there's can be communication errors and whatnot. What that means is that there years and years as we've gone on, whether it's kings and societies, religions, all those things that have been kind of absolute. Many researchers believe that because of the difference in human experience, a new kind of consensus is being formed. So when it said, we seem to need to share a communal meaning to human existence, to give with others a common sense to the world, to maintain a consensus. Once certain fundamental structures of experience are shared, they come to be experienced as objective entities, be experienced as things exterior to anyone. They take on a force and character of partially autonomous realities with their own way of life. A social norm may come to impose an oppressive obligation on everyone, though few people feel it as their own. At this human scene is a sense of mirages, demonic pseudo-realities, because everyone believes everybody else believes them. How can we find our way back to ourselves again?
So, like, I actually know someone who has a job that she gets paid to do, and it's singing in a nightclub in Second Life.
Yeah.
So these are the things that we live and surround ourselves with. We have the constants, or the things that have been there for a while. Religion. We've got civic duty, serving and voting and all those good things. But we also have things like online culture, and we've got, obviously it's the information age. Politics are still there, but they've changed a little. Corporate wealth and what that means is definitely a huge factor in incorporating views of the self. Family is still there. It's a constant, but what we said is that it's changing. The views on life, in America at least, are different, and the world too. Social norms. Now that's a huge... How does the middle class view itself, if it really exists? Now is that, since reality can be construed or constructed, right? Because we know it can be online. There are realities like Facebook, Second Life. If those can be constructed, and they're obviously societies, really, not just realities, but societies, can't the middle class be constructed, maybe? I think that's what is the argument that we're getting. And this was happening in France in 1800, but they wanted to study this person, this boy. Was born into the wild. He was 13 years old. He couldn't speak. He was kind of like Tarzan. And if there is a human nature, what is it? Are we gentle creatures ill-equipped for the constraints for the strains of life in society? Or are we brutish and aggressive animals barely tamed by the demands of social life? So these are all like the philosophical ideas talking about, and then when we have the computer, it changes again because there's another way. There's been a flood of new studies of the wild child, historical, literary, psychological. The story is evocative, good to think with, but there's something new. There is a new focus for a forbidden experiment, a new mind that is not yet a mind, a new object, betwixt and between, equally shrouded in superstition as well as science, and this is the computer. From my own remembrance of being in high school, I remember pop culture and clothes and music were like huge parts of my life. And my parents were here too, right? And then like people that I knew and things I was familiar with. And then the teachers wanted me to go, at the time, it was the 20th century, they wanted me to go to 21st century skills. They were trying to teach me this here, these things you need to survive. And now that I've gotten out into the world, and you will do this as well, things flow, things change. And actually the job training and the 21st century skills you need are here. They keep going beyond, right? And they keep changing. So because it's always changing, that's part of the reason why we have a fascination with the authenticity of the experience, because overall, despite, numerous attempts to create personality, to respond to social environments in consistent manners, and also to engage in a flexible way our lives, because of this change and these shifts that occur to us, researchers believe that we have to prepare an approach to life that will help us be successful and help us, despite the fact that there may not be that many consistencies really out there, because of the diversity of thought and trends within cultures. Sociologically speaking, lots of things are trending and shifting, and it's an interesting time to be alive in, I think. You want to educate kids that drugs and alcohol are devastating
Mhm.
to the self-concept.
Mhm.
Don't you think as educators we have a responsibility to educate around issues of technology?
Oh, absolutely.
And how the hyperreal
Unquestionably.
can affect your
Sure.
aspect of how you see yourself?
Sure.
So
Yeah,
from
there
a
are people
from a
committing
sociological
suicide.
standpoint.
There are people committing suicide for being ostracized in a world that they actually
Exactly.
don't visit except through the tube. And I don't have anything that followed television. I have a telephone, a front door, and a mailbox. That's the three
Right.
ways you can get in touch with me.
It's pretty real.
That's it. Now, the telephone, I mean, I believe in the global village. I believe in the globalization of everything, because I think that's the only way we can save ourselves, is to actually treat this planet as though we all lived on the same one.